All right. So hello. Thanks for coming today to Extra Midwest in general and also to my workshop. Swift development with the Apple Vision Pro. I'm Alton Sturgis. And yeah, I guess there's an intro for me. So I recently graduated from UC Berkeley. I'm currently doing Apple Vision Pro development with Holos Incorporated. I'm currently a Unity engineer on the team, and I am working on this team particularly because I really like the Apple Vision Pro. This headset has that signature Apple like just works design that lets me like kind of enjoy staying in the headset for like hours at a time and use it as a productivity tool, use it for entertainment, use it for other necessities. I feel like this headset at like its price point is obviously not accessible to anybody, but for a developer who's being supported by a lovely company, I feel like I'm definitely like empowered to like use this device and create really cool things with it. And yeah, I'm really glad. Outside of that, for the last almost 4 years now, I'm doing research with rehabilitating stroke patients in augmented reality. I'm advised by Sanjay A. Sesha in his lab at UC Berkeley. I recently just got published in the Neurology Journal. It feels really good to have a Google Scholar page finally, but yeah, overall, yeah, I do that on the side, and that we use Meta as tools. I only do that as a small time thing now. I mostly do Apple Vision Pro development. More about my company and like what we do because it's kind of important because I didn't know anything about Swift or the Apple Vision Pro development beforehand. Uh, and our app is a mixed reality education app. It's built in the Apple Vision Pro, and our idea here is to have a teacher and instructor view. So we have like this 3D, think of it as like a 3D PowerPoint thing where you can present and teach some kind of students. So yeah, we have a teacher view where they can make edits in a 3D space, point to certain parts of like a model, in this case, the F-35A, and also just have some kind of event system where they can touch something, or a student can touch something, and then it affects the whole model or reveals something. So there's this level of like interactivity that we're trying to build while also letting them learn. So yeah, this is built in Unity paired with Swift UI. This is very difficult to set up, and the result is pivotal to the app. By the end of this workshop, you should have some kind of idea of where to get started if you want to do Unity with Swift UI. But today I'll be focusing on Swift UI because it's the easiest way to get into developing for the Apple Vision Pro, because Unity's implementation is kind of still in the oven right now and is not totally ready yet. And also you do need a Unity Pro license to build with it. So that is just something that's there. Before joining this company, I knew absolutely nothing about Swift UI, and all I heard was that Xcode is really bad. It took me about 2 weeks to become comfortable with Swift and its lower level Objective-C, which lets me do really cool things like syncing things with a Swift, handling timings, handling alternate threads, and also just using Swift to make reactive a UI that looks really good and feels very Apple-y. Like you can see it in this image. It looks pretty good and very solid and really well designed, something that's not like a Unity app, if you know what I mean. But even after those 2 weeks, I still don't like Xcode. It's not really there yet. Sorry. First, I'm gonna get into why Swift. So the code in Swift has something such as reactive variables. This means that if I tell it to if I tell it in some kind of view, I want to display this integer. If this integer is edited outside, or if it changes over time because of some function or some state that's happening, it will update itself. And there's no need for some kind of update function like what a lot of state machines or Unity or Unreal, etc. use. So this is really nice. This is optimized for mobile. So it makes a lot of mobile apps, optimized as much as possible, which you really much need. And yeah, it's really good for like coding in like very simple terms where you're handling primitives and a lot of other things. It's also design friendly, such as if I had some view and I want to fit it in and stack it on top of another one, it aligns and fits and is reactive on its own. If I want to shuffle it or move it around in a certain way, or do what Apple has on its iPhones, we go long press something, I don't actually have to design that long press and do the whole animation. Apple has that built in, including a lot of other functions. So you have built-in transitions that I feel like a lot of people in the design world agree with because everyone's following along. So you're given all these really powerful functions just right out of the get-go. You also have live previews, such as if I have this really long sheet of code and I want to build it to my headset, but my code base is like a 5-minute build time, I could just build this one view in like 5 seconds and just preview it and make really fast edits. This is really good for people who aren't really good at like coding and knowing those kind of weird things, but are mostly designers. They could just make really small edits according to, what they're trying to do, and they can just preview it live. And the one powerful thing about this is that you can share the same code bases across different Apple OSs. So yeah, there is that, which is pretty neat. It's just that you are, once again, the con of Swift is that you are stuck with Apple. So yeah, with Swift, if you have a Windows laptop, you are not allowed to actually use Xcode. You try to get it going with like a virtual machine, but it doesn't work because they're using ARM now. If you want to work on this, for instance, you are going to need an ARM M series Mac, Xcode 16 preferably, and Apple Vision Pro Simulator. Everything here is free except for the Mac, but if you are running with Windows, this is not possible. If you don't have these prerequisites, feel free to follow along because other declarative object-oriented languages, they still work in the same way. So you can still learn a lot with Swift in terms of other UI frameworks and the like. So I'm gonna build an example app and try to get this going with 2 monitors and see if I'm in the right path or not. So here's my idea: is that I've been using the Apple Vision Pro for hours. Crying cat emoji. I don't feel so good. I don't know, and I want to keep track of the time and have it as a separate window while I'm working. One thing about the Apple Vision Pro, especially Apple Vision Pro OS 1, version OS 1, is that the time, if you wanted to get the time, you would have to look up and then pinch and do this down. With the current Apple OS version 2, you have to look at your hand and flip it over, and the time comes out like that. If you want to try it out, I do have the Vision Pro where you could just be like, whoa, okay, that's pretty neat. But still, the time is not present like on like an iPhone where it's always at the top, unless you're full screen, or on my Mac where I know it's 538. So I want to make this as a separate window while I'm working on the side. I also want this app to spawn me in an immersive space on runtime. So I just press a button and now everything clears and I'm in an immersive space. So I can relax and get out of the noise or whatever I'm working on. So I'm gonna get into that real quick. Let me just get out of here. So I'm gonna just live code some Xcode. So since it appears that I don't know if someone here is be working live and using Xcode and downloading it, I'm just gonna get going here. So let me just open just a new project real quick. So I'm gonna do file, new project. Okay. I'm just gonna put up here all the settings. Hopefully it's not mean. Okay, yes, perfect. It's all right. I'm gonna make a new project here. So as you can see, I'm given the option to choose a template for my new project. You have the options of like everything that is inside of Apple's thing, including tvOS of all things. I'm just gonna make a basic app. You can make an immersive environment app, and they have a preset for that. The app is also a preset where they give you nice functions that we're going to be utilizing today, because a lot of things are really complicated, and Apple is kind of recommending you to copy and paste a lot of these functions. So yeah, we're gonna be using the app, not a framework or stack library. That's for more advanced stuff. I'm gonna call this not the finished demo. I'm just gonna call this the basic demo, just as a name. I'll sync. Initial scene will be window, and we're gonna be using RealityKit as my immersive space renderer. So the idea here is that what happens if you want to have 3D objects on top of your mixed reality scene, or you want to be in some kind of immersive space? You have to pick between RealityKit and Metal. I don't know the differences of them at a lower level, but I do know that RealityKit has a lot of particular shader features. Metal is kind of like their OpenGL solution that's been used on phones and also on Mac. So yeah, I'm using RealityKit here. My immersive space is going to be full. That's just how I'm gonna do it. This immersive space essentially just means, do you want like stuff to be mixed where like if I put like immersive space, we kind of mix it in with like everything in your general periphery. Progressive just means that I think it's like 180. I actually don't know these things. I'm just gonna select full. No testing system because this is just a demo. So all right, let me just call this thing like it's a good name. Create good repository. I'll just create here. All right. It's gonna be my main demo. All right. So right now it gave me a really basic view right now where it's just saying hello world, and I'm just gonna give you just some kind of 3D model and the like. I'm not gonna hop into this right now because this is just like a bit more complicated than what I think it should be. So I'm just gonna hop into the Midwest demo app. Think of this as your main function. This is like your void main. This is your init function. This is what's being called whenever you play and run your app. You can see it's like that because it has the at main over here. Yeah, we do not need to worry about any of these, except you must notice that inside of this body, we are declaring a scene which has a window group and an immersive space. We are given this immersive space that I'll be creating later, but I'm going to fill it in right now. This is completely empty, this immersive space. Right now, the window group shows content view. Yeah, I'm actually just going to go and just take a look at content view again, just see what exactly does it have. Whenever you're running this stuff, here's the simulator on the right here. I'm going to hide this thing. I don't really need it. I'm going to try to just full screen this and then zoom in, make sure it's good. So you can see over here that it says hello world. I'm not allowed to move forward apparently, unless I click that. Yeah. All right. So this is hello world, and I can also show the immersive space. And you can see that with this default code, I'm given this immersive space, I think by default. But right now, because this preview is only showing this window, it will not show the immersive space. FYI, if I built this immersive space would be shown. But I'm going to get into that later. I'm going to first try to make my timer. So if I go into content view here, we have about 30 lines, 31 lines of code. I'm actually going to clear all this because I don't really want it. I do want this preview here because this is a nice preview, so I can always have this screen up. And if I make changes, this will update on its own. But I don't really want anything in this VStack, or I'm going to keep it for now because it's a nice window. So first, I need to initialize my timer. I'm going to just call this timer. I'm going to show you how this reactive state system is. So I'm going to declare this some kind of private variable. I'm just going to call it current time. We're going to call it a string for now, just because, it has like the colon and it might have extra things like AM or PM. So I'm just going to declare it a string. And I'm just going to call it as a default. So this is like a default parameter. I'm going to call it finding time. It's effectively me saying like, okay, if this string is not filled in, just say that I'm finding time. Because later we're going to be essentially generating it on the fly and seeing how that goes. So I'm going to do that. I don't know why I double did the string. Okay. One thing is that because this is just a regular variable, this isn't necessarily mutable outside of the block that's being edited in. And also it will not update inside of the view. So if I made a change to this value, it wouldn't actually change too much inside of here. And I wouldn't be able to display those changes. It would only display starting time and it wouldn't change. I'm actually just gonna demonstrate that right now just to show okay, that I could switch this thing to current time over here. And ideally, I should have finding time up here on the screen on the right. Sadly, it's not zoomed in the best. But you can see now it says finding time. I'm gonna go make this a state just for now. Okay. So that makes it just essentially do its thing. I need to have some kind of timer, or I'm gonna get into something else. Let me go do this. So okay, I have this content view right now. Or rather this body, which is some kind of view. Think of your view as like a certain set of elements that will be displayed. That could be this button that says show immersive space. It might be the find time. It might be that a 3D model that's currently being shown over there. That 3D model is being rendered by RealityKit, FYI. So if you're using Metal, then it'll be rendered via Metal. That's like some very low level thing that's not really relevant for your first Swift app. This thing is already recommending me to make an onAppear function here, I guess. Let's make sure this is the right region. Okay, got it. So I'm just gonna have a really basic onAppear here. And effectively this means that, okay, when this body or this stack or these set of elements, whenever they appear, call this body of code. And right now it's empty, and Xcode is recommending me to put in something because they have automatic code completion. I'm just gonna say that current time is going to equal some function get current time. I haven't made this function yet, and I'm going to get on that right now. So let me just get into this right now. onAppear. No, I'm going to go outside. I'm going to make out right here just for now. So I'm going to make a func get current time. In Swift, whenever you're making functions, you could think of however programming language you want to. Here we're just declaring some kind of func, the name of the func, and also what its return value is. You could put parameters here if needed. We don't need a parameter. We're making a get function to just look at the system's time right now. This doesn't work online, so we're just gonna look at the Vision OSs. We're gonna design it that way. Right now, I'm currently deciding that it's going to return a string value. So yeah, let me just go get this thing. Uh, a lot of things I'm going to be typing in, it's inside of the Vision OS documentation. I'm going to have some kind of data formatter here, and I'm going to get the formatter dot time style equals dot medium. This is just like saying, oh, do you want milliseconds? Do you want like extra things? Do you want like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, etc. And then here I'm going to then return the formatter into a string value as a date. So right now, if I were to call this date function on its own, it's actually going to give you just like current time as a default. So I'm gonna just format this as a string and return that value. So now whenever I get the return value of this current time, it'll give me current time. So yeah, that's not on a pure function, but as of right now, I'm just gonna try to get this thing to work. I don't know why it's giving me funny little errors. Get the return string, data formatter. Oh, I think I have to import something. Data formatter reality content. Okay. Oh, not data formatter. I want data formatter. Okay, I think that's it. So if I actually call this right now, this is outside the V stack. Let's put down up here a bit. Yeah, let me put up here. Okay, can't get current time and scope. No, it should be fine. It's okay. 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 It's like, oh. Yep. Yeah, and also, yeah, this thing needs to be up here because like outside the body, unless this is like static, it doesn't really know. And also, yeah, I did capital I that, but yeah, I would put this in the body if I'm allowed to, just so that like I know this is only to be used for this particular view. I could put it outside, I think, but yeah. Anyways, you can see that the current time is being set, but it's not updating. I'm gonna zoom in just to show. If I were to make some change to the code and be like, okay. Okay, I'm gonna make a change to the code, and now as you saw, it said like 39 seconds, now it's 54. So, all right, I just made a really basic timer just now. But the thing is that, okay, how do I update it? So what I'm gonna do here is that there's a lot of ways to update it. You can make your own kind of async function. You could just, have like, an update function, or what I'm going to do is that I'm going to make my own timer over here. That's a really, I guess, just like basic way that they mentioned in the Apple documentation of how to do it. So I'm gonna do a private let timer equals timer.publish. Everyone on main in common I'm gonna say common. Dot okay. All right. This timer here is just a publisher, and this just effectively gets a value from the system and is like, okay, what is the current, how long am I waiting right now? Kind of thing. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna wait every 1 second, and then as soon as that happens, I'm just gonna effectively just look at things every 1 second. So what that means is that I can hook this up now that I have essentially a 1 second update function. Now I can go over here and set a new value inside of my VStack, such that on receive, timer. Underscore in. And it works in the preview. Okay, now it updates because effectively it's saying, okay, every 1 second, I'm just gonna whenever I receive this timer, and this timer kind of updates and does its own thing, and it's published, I'm just gonna set current time to just be get current time. Effectively what we did on up here. I think if I did this, I'm actually curious what's gonna happen if I remove this. It might work. Yes, it will. It's just that in that first second, it didn't show. So yeah, that's why on up here, I currently have it there. So yeah, let me go tie that back. So, okay, I just finished the timer function. I'm going to clear this model that's being shown. Yeah, I don't really need that. Okay. That's my time display. So that's the timer. It works pretty nicely, but now I want to get to the immersive space. Now that I have a timer that kind of works, I'm gonna go into the immersive space. This is something that's made by Apple, so it's a bit more complicated. As you see, a lot of the stuff is like, okay, we have some kind of task. We're switching what kind of state we're in, which is open, closed, which has its own set of parameters. I'm going to not look at that because all I know is that that button works. I'm going to see what it looks like actually whenever I build it, not just in the preview, but inside of like an actual built simulator. Okay. So, okay. Hopefully it logs in. Okay. All right. Okay. Whenever you press play up there, you're gonna get a nice console so you can look at like any bugs that you have. This is good for debugging and just pressing on print. Now you can see that I have like the timer being updated. It's not really formatted too well, but oh well. I'm going to show the immersive space. As you see, it's completely black because there's really nothing being shown here. But as you saw, I have this state that's clearly being defined as an immersive state. And whenever it's opened, now I'm in this black space. And now whenever I hide it, I'm outside of that space. And now I'm back inside of this environment that's being shown inside of the simulator. If I was inside the headset, I would have a floating window here. And if I press that, I would no longer see anybody. And then if I press it again, I would then see everybody again. So okay, that's where we're currently at. So next, I'm going to make some kind of a thing to insert here. So I have this video inside of London where it's just like a 3D video. I'm gonna see where this thing pops up. Uh, yeah, it's this one. Drag it in. No. Okay, sure. No, just kidding. Okay. Okay. So I have a Swift video. This is a 3D video that like I'm gonna tell some AV Pro player to play. This is like the Apple Vision Pro like player that's native. They actually didn't have it in Vision OS 1. It was not really stable, nor was it like really out there. Now with Vision OS 2, it is readily available. So yeah, I'm gonna try to play this video and have this replace the black screen. So I'm gonna go back into content view, I think immersive view, because I need to add this thing in. Right now, it's trying to add some kind of basic, sphere. Uh, I don't think this, yeah, it's gonna work. And yeah, it spawns those in, but then it deletes itself. I don't really think I want those right now. So, okay. Here's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so I need some kind of skybox. Inside of this basic thing that's currently being made, Apple's telling you put the skybox here, see an example of a world project available at developer.apple.com. I looked for an example of this and I actually couldn't find it. So I had to like just like do my own kind of thing. Thankfully, someone on the forums had a really basic example. So first, I'm gonna use the idea of like a skybox. Yeah, this is literally all the code that I'm gonna have right now. Okay. So content is essentially saying what kind of content should Reality Kit render. The skybox, I'm gonna make this function right now. And effectively think of this guard as, okay, try to let this skybox equal something. And if this is not true, just return. Don't even try to add it in. Remember, if this generates skybox returns null, we don't even have a null check. But this is the preferred way for Swift to do null checks. Instead of doing something in C where it's like, okay, check if this is outside of the heap, try to check if this is like, gonna memory site, is gonna be a memory fault. Check if this is safe, check if this is null, check if it's nil. You could have that, but the best way that makes it readable is that you add this guard. It's just guard, let this variable, which is not going to be mutable, because we're gonna generate it in here. We don't want to mutate it here. So we're just gonna let this thing be this. Else return if it's nil. So yeah, I'm gonna now make the function to actually have this generate skybox, which is gonna be a lot, but let me go import AV foundation. Okay, this is like our video playing libraries. So let me get that. Okay, okay, let me do it right here. Yeah, right there's good. So all right. First for a skybox, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the idea of a skybox. It's kind of like some kind of surrounding material around you. This is how video games in general can render the sky without like, how does it know, oh, I want to render everything in the most background, everything that every model essentially override it in terms of Z ordering. But for this skybox, have it render in some kind of color or some kind of texture. So I'm gonna essentially make that. So what I know is that I need some kind of skybox mesh that surrounds the viewer. And I also need some kind of video material that is applying itself via the AV foundation because it needs some kind of texture, it needs color, it needs essentially what's being present. And yeah, I'm gonna just slap in some code here. So all right. Nah, I'm just gonna make a func. Let me get started with this. Generate skybox. No, it must be an entity because an entity is what we're gonna be adding in. So it must be an entity. Uh, Entity question mark. Effectively, this means is that, okay, return an entity. Hopefully, you can also return null if you want, and that also and that helps us do this guard because, like, if we're ensuring this to be an entity, you will run into a runtime issue or any problems with it. If it returns nil or null on its own. So yeah, that's just something you got to keep in mind. So first, we need some kind of skybox mesh. You might have to make a function for that. For now, or actually, I don't think we need a function. I think we have some kind of player here, and like ideally some kind of 360 video player. Think of like someone inside of a sphere. So I'm gonna try to generate that. I don't know what kind of radius I should do, but I'm just gonna just like kind of fill it in. Okay, box. It kind of fills it in for me. I'm just gonna say generate sphere. And then yeah, size. And no, there's no size, it's radius. Okay, radius is 1,000. So yeah, I don't really know what those units are. It might be meters, might be something else. But yeah, overall, I'm here now starting at my point. I'm gonna have like a bunch of like, I'm just gonna be inside a sphere. That's the idea behind the, a really basic skybox. So okay. Next, I need some kind of video material. I'm gonna make this in a bit. I'm just gonna make a general thing. Once again, this generate video material, it's going to try to get some video that we have inside of the app. What happens if that video doesn't exist or there's an error extracting it? I need to have it guarded. So that's why I'm going to once again make a guard. And if null, just return nil. And once again, if this returns nil, this will not execute and this will also return. So this is just a way of just making sure that everything is safe while keeping it readable and you're not having if-else statements everywhere. And just running into that kind of thing. So, okay. I'm just gonna start with generating the video material. So I need a new function here. All right. Okay. So first. Okay. Okay, so I want to find out a way how to launch in this Swift video that's currently inside of the project into a built project, essentially. This Swift video will be built to some location into the Apple Vision Pro or into the simulator. I need to be able to reference it. So all I know is that this Swift video, it knows it's a resource because you see it knows it's an MP4. It knows that, okay, this isn't a piece of code, this is a resource. So I'm gonna call it. But the way that it works is that I'm gonna call this URL because what you want to use is something called bundle.main.url. And then I'm going to call this no, not video. So it takes in two things. For resource, which is like the name. Right now, the name is a Swift-video, I think. Yes, it's Swift-video with extension MP4. Else, just return nil. For now, at least, I kind of want to have a print saying error loading video. Because we might actually run into issues. And now that we have different return nil statements, I want to know where did it actually fail. So I'm just going to have that for debugging purposes if we need it. So okay, now that I have that guard, I'm gonna now that I have this material, I'm just gonna have some kind of video player fill in as this material that I'm putting on the skybox. So URL. Um, And finally return the video material. So effectively, I am asking my AV player here, I want a video material, which is something built in, and it knows, okay, this is something that will update itself 30 frames a second, however fast, and also has, bitrate encoding. What will the player be? And what are its basic variables? So I made an AV player here where its URL is the Swift video. Hopefully this works. If not, we'll find an error loading video. And then the video material, which I'm filling in, it's gonna be that, press play, and then return the video material. So now I have it up here, and yeah, it's pretty neat. So I'm gonna just wrap up this generate skybox. Hopefully I don't need anything else. Yeah, I should be good. So I need to make some kind of entity because that's what I'm returning. So I can add it into the render, into the content rendering for a reality kit. I think I need, no, I want to model entity, let's mesh. It takes in a mesh and it also takes in some kind of materials, which is an array of materials, but I only have one, and that's fine. This just lets you have multiple materials just for the model, just in case if it's needed. As you know, in like some kind of like editor like Maya, Blender, Unity, it takes in like multiple kinds of things for 3D objects, because it might have different shaders, different types of properties. So yeah, it takes in multiple. We only have one, it's a variable material. We have nothing else with it that's like, oh, I want it to be shiny. Oh, I want you to edit its PBR or its metallicness, smoothness. No, we just want the material, no shading, because we don't really care about lighting right now. So okay, one thing I do want to make sure is that the scale. This is something that I experiment on my own, but just for the sake of time. But overall, I do need to edit. I do need to add some kind of offset to this entity scale, because once again, we are working in like with just a basic generated sphere. I think in my own testing, this is going to end up just being reverse. So I'm actually going to flip it over. Whenever you'll flip those variables with scale, if you're familiar with 3D object transforms, whenever you press one of them to like -1, effectively flips and mirrors itself. So I think if this is one, then and I launched it in, then it's actually just going to be like, yeah, not like the best. So yeah, let me get up here, and then I think this is it, because I made it, got the material, scaled it. Now I can return it. So I'm gonna return the skybox entity, and this should be good. Oh, the entity. Okay, so there's that, and I think it's compiling. So it still says failed to build scheme, but I don't see any issues. I'm just gonna build. Hopefully the simulator is good. So it did build pretty fast, by the way. So that's why this is nice. Let me see. Hopefully this thing is still good. Okay. The reason why whenever you build, it does take a while is because Xcode is effectively hooking into the simulator and effectively runs in debug mode, so that if we have issues, I can see that print statement if this doesn't work. So okay, this still updates. I have my timer, very, very small. And now I'm going to show the immersive space. And is it going to work? Yes, it works. Oh, okay, yeah. So you see, this works like a YouTube video whenever you go into 3D mode on some other headset, but now it's just working locally on the Apple Vision Pro whenever I press that button. I'm gonna now hide the immersive space, but there was one problem I have with this app. I wanted to make a timer that actually functions, and although it functions, I can't see it. Although on the presentation I can't see it, and on the Apple Vision Pro, there's not everything is actually high retina, so you can see mostly everything. There's no pixelation. It's just too small. So although I got through the coding aspects of the immersive space, and also of how to update and show you the reactive variables, I'm going to show you the design side of the Vision Pro now, and show you, okay, how do we get this thing to actually look good? So, all right, I'm going to run that in the background, or actually, no, I'm going to kill it just for the RAM. So, okay, we're kind of doing basic things of okay, inside of this VStack, I'm going to have text current time. But okay, the text is small, and also that window, why is it so big? So first, I'm going to get into the text, mostly just because yeah, we need something more. And also the immersive space button that is also right under the thing. So I want to see what I can do here. So, okay. Background, VStack. All right. First, I'm gonna add in a spacer. This just effectively makes it so that if I have some kind of element, it actually spaces itself out from like the top. It's just something that just effectively makes so that your things aren't clipping into each other or right next to each other. Uh, Next, I'm going to have this current time. Okay. And I'm gonna start adding in some things. So first, I want that font to be bigger. So I'm gonna put in some bigger variables in there. How about 60? 60 sounds pretty good. Let's also bold it because like why not? And also let's just like design it so that it's a monospace so that there's no weird spacing. So yeah, hopefully yeah, it's included. Let's make that foreground color there to be primary. I'm gonna first actually yeah make sure that the preview is working because I want to make sure the stuff's gonna be shown. Mm, okay. So yeah, that's primary content. This is something that's kind of built in the Swift UI. All these values here, they're all built in the Swift UI. And as a designer, obviously you might want to make something of your own, but these are really good defaults because it's Appleized. Hopefully this thing wants to load. All right, whoa, perfect. So you see the spacer kind of made this big space here. Maybe I don't need it. But now you can see it's actually visible. And I just bolded it. I also gave it like, bigger font, and also it's monospace. So there's no weird spacing. And because I had this time style to be medium, I have PM here. So it actually makes a lot of sense, and you don't have to add anything else. I think this is a good start. Let me see if adding in some kind of shadow is gonna be good. Hmm. Maybe let me see how this renders. Because like although it's white, now there's like nothing behind it. I don't know if that did much, but yeah, maybe a bit more contrast whenever you're viewing the Apple Vision Pro. This is fine, but I don't know why everything's like towards the bottom now. I might have to do something with it. So I have a VStack. Yeah, that's pretty neat. Hmm. Okay. Now that I have this, I'm actually gonna remove the spacer because it seems very extraneous. I'm gonna see where this thing goes. Hopefully towards the middle. Okay, perfect. It's in the middle now. I need the spacer, but that window is too big. So I'm gonna go into my main app again, and now inside this window group, I can actually edit some of the things here, like default sizing. What kind of window should it be? Should it be volumetric? Should it be plain? Should it just be flat? Should it be 3D? Right now, I just care about default size. And right now, I'm gonna make the size let's say 500 and then 250 because we're working with like 60 font. Like I don't really know the details on like the values here. I usually just guess and check, which is not good to teach, but that's kind of how I work with things. I'm not a designer, I'm mostly a programmer. So all right, I changed that to default size. It might not show like that in the content view, but whenever I open it via here, it will change the size. So let me try this out again. Fingers crossed this thing is actually pretty good. Okay, perfect. Yep. That was good things to set over there. You could make this automatic and insert those values according to like the how big the view is coming in from a Swift, or you can set it to be automatic. But I just inserted the values. It's all, insert the values are good because you can hard code certain things, and also the user can still resize it. And also remember with this resizing, if I had more elements on the screen, it would automatically fill it up. If I made it smaller, as you can see, it automatically wraps around and automatically adjusts itself. This is why it's a great tool for like designers because they can account for different things of different window sizes and lose certain things and also make options so that, okay, if it's being cut off, just cut off. Don't even put the PM and do those kind of things. And it does it reactively without having to add like all these extra items and, really complex things. Like if you ever worked in a web dev, like the really funny, oh, how do you center a div? Like, funny Stack Overflow question that everybody ends up looking up. It's hard to do these kind of things in Swift. It automatically manages for you. So yeah, that's effectively the app. I could show the immersive space and it all works. And the reason why this immersive space is pretty powerful is because if I was like doing something else, like and I was in Safari and I was looking up baby red pandas and looking at how to buy them and also like different kinds, like I don't know, it's kind of a funny website because they actually exist and I think it's a group of people who like track different ones that exist in the world because they're endangered. Find a zoo nearby. Yeah, there's even pictures of them. So if I was looking at this for 2 hours because I love them, but I want to take a break because the time is running to like 6:11, you can see I'm doing these two things at the same time. An iPhone app, you can't do that. But with Vision Pro, you can have two different windows. This is why it's a very powerful tool, in my opinion. If I want to just escape this and go immersive, it's gone now because I'm now focused on this app and I'm in this immersive space. Whenever you're in immersive space, the only thing right now that can show is the app that launched the immersive space. That is because you need to be able to get out of it without pressing any other buttons. This is how Apple specifically designed it. They might change that in the future, but okay, I did that. Now I'm back into the real world with back to the baby pandas. So that's an example of Swift UI. Yeah, hope you learned something out of this part. I have a few more slides that I could just mull over real quick. So yeah, that's the example. If you want the code for it, just let me know. So this is the first app, pretty neat. But okay, you must be asking yourself as VR developers, what about Unity? So now that I know that Swift UI is really good for small basic experiences that adhere to Apple's design scheme, design philosophy, as you know, because you are limited in some ways. You have to do it the Apple way, but if you do it, it looks really good. If you don't want to do that, Unity is heavily recommended, and it's a pretty good indicator of why Apple pulled them on to work on this headset with them. Because Unity is always good for gaming experiences. Like I did look it up today as a great question. Like, can you make a AAA game with Swift UI? And no one said anything, and there were barely any like responses to that for a reason. Because Swift UI is more for Swift, or rather just Swift in general, not necessarily the UI part. It's near impossible to make a big gaming experience. So that's why Unity is still here. And also porting between platforms. If I'm a VR dev who worked and had my whole code base on Meta, and I want to move over to the Apple Vision Pro, and I want to use their really good UI in an immersive space that came from my Meta code base, you can just cut the UI to Unity and just hook it into Swift UI, and now you're ported over to Apple Vision Pro with better Retina display and also just overall better UI. That just works. A Pro license is needed for now though, which is like $2,000 a year. So I don't know, pick your poison. But Swift UI can still be used with Unity. I feel like if I had more time and I didn't spend like a bit more time going over things, I would have gone into how, just like a basic example of like how Unity C# compiles to IL2 CPP, essentially C++, and we could link the functions to Swift's Objective-C. So this is the way how we could pass in certain values, like, what's the time, for instance. This is another timer example where you have, clock index, what's the display seconds, are you displaying AM or PM? These are all primitives. And you can see down here that I'm going to send this thing using some kind of internal DLL import, and I'm going to send this over to Objective-C. Now this is in Swift land. I can essentially say, oh, I want you to import from the low level this function that shares the exact same name here, as initialize clock UI values. I want to import this thing and have the exact same signature, essentially the same parameters here with booleans and just ints and have those things, and now I can update it and display it. So that's the way that you can do it via Swift. So yeah, this kind of thing works async. And right now, the percentage used for this particular kind of experience is low. I did pull this example out of something that I was working on before. It does say 70%, but like remember, the maximum percentage they can use is about 1,200. That's just how they like doing percentages. 70% is, I think I was loading a video at the same time, but yeah, this is just an example of like that it's somewhat pretty much efficient. I would have to get harder numbers on that, but I just know for certain that it's been working. It only works with primitive types though. So like if you want a string, you want to send a string, you must be like on the Swift side, Objective-C. I want an unsafe pointer to a char, which yeah, you just have to state it that way. You have these primitives and convert it to a string. It's efficient, and yeah, it works where you can have multiple calls because it all works at a very low level because it communicates with it if needed whenever it's called. So that's it. Essentially, if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up right now, and that's my email. Yep. Question? That is something that I prefer because I have a tendency to get VR sickness. So the question that was asked was, is it harder or like difficult or different in general to develop for the Apple Vision Pro given there's no controllers? I feel like controllers are only really good back in the day as like pointer devices because VR headsets used to be video players, and then they soon got analog sticks on them. I'm talking about the more consumer controllers, and they got analog sticks because people want to play VR gaming experiences where they can move around in this immersive space. It's just that for me, it's very nauseous. And also, I'm not a gamer like that. Like, the most popular VR game doesn't actually need controllers. There is now becoming options to play Beat Saber with hand tracking. Mostly because you don't need to move. You just stay in one place, and all it needs to know is the position of your hands. Obviously, with hand tracking, the latency is a lot different. But in general, yeah, I don't find it as difficult because I like the experiences in VR that are most suited for non-locomotion. So not gaming, not exploration kind of things. I prefer things where someone stays in one spot and they're looking at something or interacting with some kind of system. And Swift's really good, and the Vision Pro is really good for that because it's designed around it. Whenever you spawn in windows on this headset, I spawn one right here. Whenever you keep spawning them in, they all have to surround you in a certain way. Like, you can obviously pull it in towards you, but whenever you want to, move it around, it always looks at you. I could demonstrate this in the simulator right now, I think. Where, okay, I want to have this little panda thing and I want to move it around. If there's something you notice, whenever I move this thing up, it doesn't just move it up, it also points it towards you. So everything acts very spherically. Where, okay, I look up and it's still looking at me. If I move, then it's also, so if I move in real life, this is me moving in real life. Obviously instead of the simulator, if I grab this again, it instantly snaps back to me. That's just the way that it's designed because this is not a locomotion oriented device where you're using controllers. The camera and the retina is so good such that it has a LiDAR sensor. Why do that if you could just use locomotion in real life and it knows exactly where the tables are and it can know and be like, oh, I want to place an object here. So that's why controllers aren't really supported for this device. So it hasn't been a difficult thing for me because I don't like controllers in general. My specialty is in hand tracking and things that don't require it. Yep, question.
Wish, are there any particular things that you wish Swift had and vice versa? Or you see that similar?
So Swift and Unity aren't really similar. The if you want to make 3D experiences that were a bit complex, and you want to get into the neck deep of things, you have to use something called the Reality Composer Pro, which is actually something that I'm really unfamiliar with, but it's effectively the way they could get into the deep parts of the reality kit and also just things within the scene. You can see that it has a hierarchy root. If I made something new over here and create a new scene from selection, make new things, drag in assets, I can do that. So it's almost like Unity or some kind of Blender system. So yeah, it has its own thing if needed. So it has all the features of Unity. It's just that it's not as rigorously tested, and also it's not been used in game devs. There's not a lot of resources, and also I like C#. So it's honestly just like pick your poison kind of thing, but just know that Unity and Swift, they could be used to get the best of both worlds, the best of state machine-esque kind of game dev, and also the best of UI work. So yeah. Okay. Woohoo. Any questions from the Zoom? Because if not, then I'm just gonna end it right here. Let me go stop the recording. Thank you to anybody listening to the recording.